to work in some other way is unrealistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we at the 20-minute mark? Okay, so now I'm going to call speakers for the other side in favor. That's the stack. John, and you can go ahead and line up. It'll be John Knox White, Malia Vella, Brian McGuire, David Maletsky, Denise Trepanier, John Spangler, Aaron Bialik, Lisa Foster. All right.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you. John Knox White. I think you're very lucky tonight to have the choice that you have. You have a choice tonight to build a safe street, make a safer neighborhood, or don't. It's very simple. The number of people that are hit on this section of road, and actually in the section that most people are talking about tonight, is terrible. It's embarrassing. And we can tonight say that we're not going to put up with that one person is too many, that 9 is way too many, and that we're going to start taking steps. May not solve the problem 100% tonight, but every single thing that is proposed tonight will make a step forward. I think it's really important to understand that through this process started with a much safer, much better project. That the project that is before you is a significant compromise that people who want safe streets have agreed to buy into in order to find a way forward. Our business associations asked for things to be changed so that they could park in front of their businesses instead of have safer streets for people who walk and bike along them. We did that. And then at the last minute, they came in and asked for more, and actually are asking you to undo this. Tonight, your choice is very simple. You can rely on the professional recommendation of your transportation planning staff and engineers, and the well-respected transportation engineers and planners that were hired from Kittleson, who tell you that this plan will not only work and not be a disaster, but that it will be safer. Or you can opt for what will clearly be a political decision that is personally beneficial, but not beneficial to this project and not beneficial to safety, to listen to the guy who owns a hotel down the street who tells you it can't work, it's going to be a disaster. Tonight is about safety and people's lives and the neighborhoods of the people for whom this project goes through. It's an easy decision. If you vote to do nothing in the section that WABA is asking you to not do anything in, every concern you have made in your questions that were clear that you have and that you should be asking questions about, every one of them will exist, only worse. There will be more places where kids are mixing with those large trucks. It will be more chaotic. The safety issues that your planning staff and the engineers and the people who know safety and how to design safe streets have told you is a problem will exist. Is it perfect? No. I would encourage you that if safety is your concern, to ask staff to move forward with more or less this plan, but come back with a safer plan for the 2 blocks that everybody seems to be concerned about. But tonight, your choice is easy. Your choice is safe streets and safe neighborhoods and stopping people from being hit by cars, or choosing politics. And everybody in this room is going to know which choice you made at the end of the night. Thank you.
Thank you. Malia Vella, Brian McGuire. Yeah. She's the only one out of those. Maybe if I called you, and then John, I think. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Spencer and City Council. My name's Malia Vella. I live on the corner of Sherman and Santa Clara, and I have witnessed a number of near accidents involving a number of school children biking 2 Mile End School. Most recently, somebody actually drove around the cyclists, almost hit a bus, and then drove up and actually hit the stairs going up to the front porch of my neighbor across the street. A couple weeks before that, I was walking out of my own house. Similar thing happened. Driver drove up over the sidewalk and actually ended up about 2 feet from me. I think there's something very compelling about protecting our kids when they try to go to school. I think there's something very compelling about living up to the commitment that we made to try to encourage alternate modes of transportation. And I think there's something compelling about enforcing the speed limits. And we know that by narrowing the roads, people are more cognizant of what they're doing. Last week, I intended to come back and speak at this meeting. I drove about 1.5 blocks and was hit by a distracted driver who actually drove through the stop sign on the corner of Pacific and Oak, almost hitting 2 cyclists and T-boning me while I was in the middle of the intersection. And you know what? I'm happy that I was the one that was hit and not the cyclists, because she was going about 20 miles over the speed limit. And that's the biggest problem about all of this, is if we keep Central the way it is, we have people barreling down it like it's a highway. And we know that the reason we have the speed limit is to make sure that there aren't those collisions. We don't want a fatality. We shouldn't have to have a fatality before we actually do something. And this is part of a comprehensive plan that I think a number of people have spent a lot of time working on the details. And I just really hope that the council does something to make sure that it's seen to its end, and that it's really considering all of the work from all of the individuals who've worked on this for so long. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Because it seems that the most controversial intersection is this one at Central and Webster. I think we can agree that the busiest time for that intersection is the westbound traffic, when people are heading toward the schools and the ferry, because the afternoon commute, the evening commute is more dispersed. Schools are already out. People get home at different times, may stop off somewhere on their way home. But so I asked, I want specifics. I'm an attorney. I like to analyze the facts. What's the biggest concern at that intersection? And I was told it's that left turn. We're concerned that people turning left are going to hold up traffic behind them, and that's just going to slow down traffic. And I said, but where are people turning left? Remember, if you're coming westbound on Central, you turn right to go down Webster to go to the Tube or get your coffee at West Cafe or whatever. But turn left. What are you going to turn left for? Well, there are the condominiums, there's O'Reilly Auto Parts, and there's Pagano's. Well, most people are leaving their homes in the morning rather than turning left to go to their homes. I mean, maybe somebody is visiting someone early in the morning. Okay, but how many? O'Reilly Auto Parts does open at 7:30, but how many are we talking about? And I mean, traffic, we wait for people to turn left all the time. And then Pagano's. Well, Pagano's also has a driveway to the Neptune Plaza shopping center where it's located off of Central, so there's other ways to get to Pagano's. The concern about the cars sharing, the parked cars sharing some bike lane space with bicyclists on the Central Avenue side of the liquor store, and the liquor store does open at 7:30. That doesn't seem a huge concern, because of the businesses on that block from the intersection of Central and Webster going toward 6th. Only 2 of them are open as early as the commute hour, and that is the liquor store that opens at 7:30 and the laundromat, which is open from 6 a.m. to midnight. But even on a Saturday morning, there were free parking spaces there, and I took my pictures. And also on Mondays, every Monday morning from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., that side of the street is closed for street sweeping. So somehow people manage to get around despite that. But what I wanted Mr. Jarawala to know is that I do believe, like the bicycle advocates we've heard from, that people want to go to Webster. We want to support your businesses. We will get there, but we'll get there even more readily if there's safe places to go. But at the end of the day, the decision I make as a council member is to balance the different interests that I've heard. And I really don't believe they're mutually exclusive. But I'll tell you what has influenced me the most. We've heard from a large number of students. Lovely to see our young people out participating in the civic engagement. Last week we heard from many. One was Luke, a 7th grader, who told us he biked 1,100 miles last year. Wow. Others told us they want a safe place to ride, freedom to go where they want to go without being driven, chauffeured by their parents. And I have to say I'm distressed, as I think everyone on this council is, by hearing experiences our young people have had with rude drivers. So many drivers listening out there. please don't take your road rage out on anyone, but certainly not a young child on a bike. We also heard from a woman who is a pediatrician in town and a mother of 3. She spoke of an obesity epidemic among our children that results from lack of exercise and puts 1 in 3 kids at risk for diabetes. We as a council have an opportunity to make a policy decision that addresses a public health issue. They do say, Tip O'Neill, right, all politics is local. Local schools were also well represented among the speakers. Tonight, the superintendent of schools, Dr. Sean McFetridge, spoke to us, and he also represented the views of the principals of Payton Elementary and Encinal High School. Last week, we heard from the executive director of the Academy of Alameda and the director of Child Unique Montessori there on the corner of Central and 6th in the former St. Barnabas School, all of whom are solidly in support of this project. And we have heard from both as speakers and in emails that we've gotten residents of Central Avenue in the plan area, the lower blocks of Central Avenue, as well as streets just off of Central Avenue. And they talk about the themes we heard today. We need to slow that traffic down. We need to make it safer to cross the street. We need to make it safe for all modes of travel to get down the street and across the street. And of course, that's also the state law. And we heard about the environment, reducing carbon emissions. We can give people a way to get out of their car, to choose another means of transportation, and not spew any carbon emissions into the atmosphere. And then I have to say for myself, the most sobering speaker that I heard was Caitlin Schwartzman, who last week described her sister's horrendous bicycle accident in Berkeley. It's a miracle that she's alive. She missed her daughter's first birthday because she was still recuperating from multiple injuries. And this was at a time when Berkeley was contemplating adding bike lanes, but the city council wanted more statistical analysis. My feeling is that this plan has been vetted. We've had public forums. We've had Caltrans endorse the 3-lane configuration. It has been through our Transportation Commission and our Planning Department. I also understand what this is. It's a concept plan saying, yes, let's go forward with this concept plan. It is not etched in stone. We can still make tweaks, and there's some I would like to make. I'm not going to go through it all at this time because I want to hear from my colleagues, and we will have, if we have the political backbone to pass this measure tonight, we will have the opportunity to come back and refine it further. But it is also sobering to me that we've had more pedestrian and cyclist injuries on the West End. I don't want to have any more of them anywhere on my island, but there are certain areas that need our immediate attention, and I believe that this Central Avenue area is one of them. So with that said, I stand fully behind and ready to support this project. Thank you, Mayor Spencer.
Plan to put bike lanes and bike routes on Central Avenue west of Sherman is city policy. It's in our bike master plan. The bike master plan was put in place in 1999, and I happened to vote for it in October of 2010 when I was on the council previously. So that's not a question that we have to have something addressed on this section of Central. I want to start from a premise of pedestrians and crossing the street, because that actually is I think a major part of this project, and I'd like to see the same kind of improvements that are made on Page Street crossing of Central that services Alameda to Washington Park be made at the intersection of McKay and Central. And that's to keep in mind that the park at Crab Cove is going to be expanded. Right now there's no crosswalks, and that area can use, I think, some attention. I'm not a traffic engineer. I can't tell you what the solution is, but I think we're going to be having more people visit the park. There are going to be buses turning that corner to get into the expanded parking for the school programs at the park, and we have to encourage people to walk and bike to the park. So I think that's a glaring omission in this plan that I'd like to see included. I think by and large, west of McKay and east of 8th Street, I see no problem with the concept. And again, I want to say concept, because this is not the design plan. I think it's rightfully so that the intersection of Webster and Central is getting a lot of attention, because anybody who goes down there at rush hour, in the morning especially, knows that if you take what's on the PowerPoints and the presentations and try and drive the AC Transit buses, and there are 3 lines that go through that intersection, try and round that corner going up Webster Street, they're not going to make it in the proposed configuration. So I think that needs to be, and I'd like to see this plan go forward with conditions. One condition is that area, but roughly between Page and McKay, gets further engineered for a better solution, because it's a matter of safety. And that left turn only lane that was explained last time, if you're a cyclist and you're trying to ride straight across Central and you've got a bus turning in front of you, if you've got a stream of cars turning in front of you, that's not safe. And I think to have kids go out to the center lane, that straight lane with a left turn in it, I think is too much to ask personally. So I think that intersection does need, but I think we can write this concept plan that there will be a solution, whether it's go on the shoreline path or whether it's go up to Santa Clara, whatever it might be, or look at an exception to riding on the south side sidewalk. Because you know, we need to open that up to make sure that that's a safe intersection, because right now in the plan it's not. And it's not specifically in the morning commute. I think I've been down there a gazillion times now, on bike, on foot, and in a car, and most of the time there is no problem at all. But when there's a truck making a delivery, a bus making a turn, it is a problem. And it's most apparent when people are going to school or people are going to work. So I think that's a practical thing. And I think attention to detail, to see bulb outs there on that corner, to me shows that was maybe a concept of the lightest kind. It's what could happen, but it's not what's really practical in the field. And then the other thing that I think we need to do is I don't think we can dismiss the statistics, the requirements for space that were enumerated by the engineers. Those are real numbers and they're there for a purpose. So when we go from concept to design, we need to make sure that there's an exception process that highlights any exception that's made to the state standard, to our own standard, because of whatever, and that the Transportation Commission and the council get a chance to test that exception against the risk we want to assume as a city. And then lastly, this is subject to funding. $9 million. What if we don't get the $9 million? We're going to have to prioritize. And my vote would be to put it in front of the schools, because that's the biggest need, where we have all those schools. But we're not there yet. But I think when this goes forward, we have to make sure that we take into account again, the intersection at Webster and Central, keeping in mind that it's different than Broadway. It's a business district. There's going to be offloading of trucks. There's not always going to be a liquor store on the corner, and Neptune Plaza isn't always going to be less than what we want. Those are going to be developed. I wouldn't be surprised if the O'Reilly eventually gets developed, because look at Taylor and Webster finally getting developed. We need to make sure that whatever concept we have matches that future development. The USDA site that fronts on Central is going to get developed, and the Foster's Freeze is going to get developed. So there's going to be a lot of commercial and or residential activity there that's not there now and that's not anticipated in this plan. So I think we need to be mindful of that. And to me, a little bit of delay doesn't matter, but the reality of parking a garbage truck, the reality of parking a delivery truck, the reality of the AC Transit buses, which if our next step would be to get another line that comes up the south end, and we would have to accommodate that line as well. So I'd like the words concept plan to be in big letters to help manage the expectations of our community and ourselves when the money comes down and when we take into account the future conditions. Again, we need to go forward, but we need to go forward with those conditions in place, in my opinion.
So this is part of the larger citywide transit plan, but this is improving a key segment of Alameda. I think the fact that this is also something that enhances safety for the young kids who travel. There's roughly someone said 5,000 worth of people going up and down Central Avenue to the different schools. I think that really speaks for itself in terms of making sure that this city council is proactive in dealing with that. So the concept plan, I believe, needs to move forward. I have expressed some concern about the middle lanes, but I think the points raised by many of the people lead me to believe that we're moving in the right path. I have every confidence that our staff, along with our consultants, will implement features that are safe for our kids, especially as they cross. So I think we should move forward with the concept. I hope we do take a look at increasing the length of the approach to 8th Street, and what our staff and consultants have to say about Webster and Central Avenue. I look forward to listening more. Because we all live in an island, we all need to get along together. But because we live in an island, we also understand, like many people outside of Alameda don't understand, why it's important for us to begin to take serious steps to change our behavior. With the rising sea level and also the rising temperature, much of which is caused by our auto traffic. So this is an important step that we have to take. I'm proud of the citywide transit strategy that we're moving forward with, and I see this as part and parcel of that.
Said, what do you value? I mean, do we value parking over safety, or safety over parking? Do we value a 1-minute delay over safety, or do we value safety over a 1-minute delay? And that's kind of where I come down on this. We heard Caitlin Schwartzman. She probably had the most compelling testimony or public comment of anyone we've ever heard. John Knox White today said, one, I wrote really small, John. One is too many. So if we have, just one casualty or one fatality or one serious injury that paralyzes somebody like the gentleman's uncle, to me that's too many. So I come down on the side of safety. And for those that may not think that this is the perfect solution, I do want to echo what the vice mayor and my colleague, member Ashcraft said. This is not a detailed engineering plan. This is just a concept. And there are substantial safety benefits in this concept. I think the most important thing for me is this is all concentrated around schools. Now, charter schools, whether we like them or not, good or bad or indifferent, they're here, and most of them are on the West End. So as they draw students from the East End to the West End, that's just a fact of life that we have to deal with. So we have a responsibility, I believe, as council members to try and make that journey for those students as safe as possible. I think if we do these road diets and narrow these lanes from 4 to 2, we're going to have less occurrences of where that happens, where we have 4 lanes of traffic that have to come to a stop. So that's critical to me. I also think as we should consider this bike light idea. I'm very concerned about the Webster Central intersection. I'm in the vice mayor, and I'm just going to riff a little bit off of what he said, but I'd like to see it further engineered for the safest solution. So I know there was a lot of compromise, a lot of back and forth. I mean, if the solution we have is the safest, if the solution that WABA is putting forth is the safest, if alternative solutions that the vice mayor outlined are the safest, if the original proposal is the safest. Let's see if we can engineer this for the safest solution. And then
I am concerned that, especially around the Central Webster intersection, that it will not be safe, that it is not safe, that these changes will not be safe. And in regards to saving lives, when you look at those big trucks turning there into a bus, I think, I actually do not know that that is a safe area to have any bikers routed through. So if in regards to approving this concept, and the dedicated right lane, what I've seen on Otis, which is where I live, down by Broadway, the cars zip in that dedicated right lane. And to think that we're going to then have trucks doing that also, and also have kids riding their bikes across that, I would actually prefer coming up with a different way for the bikers at that intersection.
And just as the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Odie said, we would be glad in the design phase to look at the safer solutions for this intersection, absolutely. And when best practices, maybe there are other solutions at that stage. So I absolutely think that's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Okay, so we also heard from bicyclists that had concerns of riding in the door zone. How much of this project actually has our bicyclists riding in the door zone?
So in the East End section, those are standard, traditional, conventional bike lanes. It's a dedicated space to ride a bike. Right now, there's no dedicated space, so there's people riding bikes are in the door zone currently, and they're also at the same time having to look at cars behind them. So we're trying to make it safer. This provides a dedicated space for bicyclists, so all they have to do is look for potential door zone and not for people in back of them.
But they would still be in the door zone.
Correct.
So this actually still leaves the bicyclists in the door zone. Yes?
And a question about the door zone, Ms. Payne, so the bicycle lane that runs along Broadway, and I use that one frequently. When I'm riding in the bike lane, I'm also riding in the door zone, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So unless we can do a cycle track like we've done on Fernside and Shoreline, which are lovely, we're not going to avoid the door zone, but I agree that not having to both share the lane and look over your shoulder. And it's one of those things, if you're a bicyclist, whether you're young, whether you're old or in between, you do have to pay attention to your safety just like a motorist does. And to the mayor's point, I think you were asking about someone coming along the Shoreline cycle track, and is there a way to make it over to McKay? A scenic route, and I use it, is you just segue through Crown Beach, essentially. There's path, it's very scenic, and then you go through Crown Harbor, and you can come out either on McKay or what I think is going to be a crosswalk now, right, at 6th? So there's, if you want a little more scenic route, but I agree that we're talking about Central, and that's what the program area and the funding for the study that we had covered. Thank you.
Okay, and then what about connecting? We heard about connections, and that could be another way to get to Payton. I know the students do ride on the sidewalk there, and is it legal to ride on the sidewalk there?
That's a commercial area, so in commercial areas, it's not legal.
So by Payton, it's not legal there to ride your bicycle on the
Correct.
sidewalk? Okay, is it legal as you get closer to Encinal High then? When does it become legal?
It's only in commercial areas that it's a problem to ride on the sidewalks, and it's not the place where we want bicyclists to be because they're not as visible. When you're going in and out of driveways, it's not the expected place to see bicyclists going at the higher speeds that pedestrians go on, much lower speeds at sidewalks. So it's not a predictable situation, and that's not how the best practice way to ride a bike.
Okay, but this isn't best practice, is it?
Unfortunately, the East End is not. It's conventional bike lanes. The West End section is best practices, yes. It's two-way physically separated bikeway, physically
Okay,
separated
so
from
where does it
motorists.
become best practice?
Payton School, west to Alameda Point.
Okay, it's from Payton west to Alameda Point, and that's actually where those schools are, and that is the best practice
And
there.
it's also the San Francisco Bay Trail, correct?
Okay, and then the everything to the east then a fifth? Is it really a fifth? Where does it become best practice?
It becomes best practices at Payton School.
So is that, you mean like a fifth right there?
It's the two-way physically separated bikeway begins at Payton School at the new mid-block crossing with the rapid flashing beacon and the pedestrian refuge island, and it goes west all the way to Alameda Point. And it also, that same type of two-way physically separated bikeway would also be on Boat Ramp Road, which is now only an extended driveway, so it'd be a standard street.
Okay, and we also, and when I look at this plan, I actually do not feel comfortable telling any parent that your child would be safe riding along until you get to, I'd say, Payton, then I would agree with you there. But I would think everything that's east of that, this does not hit the mark yet for me to put my name on it to support having children drive across town. And I really think that, and I'm going to circle back, when I look at Encinal and Payton and that work best practices, go ahead and do that. The rest of it needs more work, in my opinion, and I don't think it's appropriate to suggest to any parent that this is safe. And that is a serious problem, but I keep hearing this is for children riding their bikes to school. That is not safe, and it is not a best practice, and it's not appropriate, in my opinion, for council to be suggesting that it is safe. And I think it is very appropriate for us as a community, and I believe the community wants, okay, and in regards to safety, we want everyone to be safe. That is a value. However, a value is not to pretend that something is safe when it is not. And that is a serious problem, in my opinion, with this concept. It's as much as people want to have a safe bike lane, that is exactly what our children deserve. Our children do not deserve, in my opinion, to be told that something is safe when it is not. And I think we have to, I think the rest of this project, concept, whatever you want to call it, requires much more work. And we need to actually figure out, other cities are doing this. They're coming up with roads that are where the bikes are primarily, and roads that are more of where you would have your trucks. And figuring out how to do this safely. And you pull back, I think, and honestly, Member Daysog, when he references, we are trying to come up with a city that is safe for multi-modes. That does not mean, in my opinion, that every road has to accommodate, nor should it accommodate everything at this point. If we were building a brand-new city and we could have multiple lanes and everything, that would be perfect. We are not. We're taking a very old town that is now a city that will only have more traffic, and there will be a lot more business at the point. And I was not here when the point was active, but there was a lot more traffic then. Does that mean you want your children riding their bikes through that? I'm going to say no.
I think what the majority of us want to do is move forward approving this concept, but looking into, as you say, the best practices and the safest procedures, which may mean trying less to compromise, as was done, and actually listening to what is the safest best practices. But I think that we would be selling ourselves short not to move forward with this concept, to go out for the funding and to work in the safety procedures.
My understanding is our original plan was actually the best practice, and we backed away from that because of a compromise. So I guess what I'm hearing, that you want us to go back to what we consider to be the safest, which wasn't a compromise.
Some of the compromise at Webster and Central was in recognition of the realities there, that it is a commercial district.
As a city, as difficult as this might be for the many businesses there and who have come out, I think the default position needs to be moving forward with a solution that is consistent with this bike lane idea. The default position can't be 4 lanes. It just can't. That's an alternative. So I just want to make sure to emphasize that we're not from my vantage point, we're not going in there saying it will be 4 lanes, and we're going to look at alternatives if they happen to, be workable. I think the default position has to be, we're going to go with our best bike-oriented, safety-oriented solution through that intersection.